rectangular prisms. Warming up our brain today. Rounding 654 to the nearest 100. Remember that when we are rounding, we should underline the place that we're talking about. So this is our 100. Take a look to the right. If it's 5 or higher, we round it up. And if it is 4 or lower, we keep it the same. 5 is larger, or if it's 5 or higher, so we need to round up. The 6 to 7. Everything to the right turns to zeros. Looking at the next one, 4,654 and 97 hundredths. Rounding it to the nearest whole number. Whole number is our ones place. Taking a look to the right, 5 and higher tells us to round it up. Everything to the left stays the same. Okay, we're going to change the 4 to a 5, and everything to the right is going to turn to zeros. 67 and 72 thousandths, we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so underline it. Take a look to the right. It is larger than 5, so we need to be rounding it up. Everything to the left stays the same. Underline value where we're going to increase. Everything to the right turns to zeros. Just a reminder that 67 and 100 thousandths is the same as 67 and 1/10. Rounding 3 and 452 thousandths to the nearest hundredth. Underlining our hundredths. Taking a look to the right. Everything to the left of the underlined value stays the same. And then we have to take a look at our 5. Well, because it is 2, we're going to keep it the same. Everything to the right of the underline will turn to a 0. 67% of 100 would be equal to, excuse me, 67% of 100 to the nearest 10. So really we could just round this to the nearest 10, which would be 70, and 70% of 100 would be 70. Rounding 8 and 6 thousandths to the nearest tenth. Underlining our tenth. Taking a look to the right. Everything to the left stays the same. And then the 0 tells to keep us the same. So it would be 8 and 0 thousandths, or just 8. All right, now you're going to be needing to turn to your SRB, and you're going to be reading about the volume and capacity. I would like you to either pause and take a look at this page, or opening up and reading in your student reference book on page 195. I would like you to come up with a couple questions that could be answered based off of this. All right, the big ideas from 321 is that a rectangular prism is formed by 6 flat surfaces or faces that are rectangles. Thinking about a cube, there are 6 sides to that cube. Any of the 6 faces of the prism can be a base, but the face that the prism sits on is often chosen as the base. That's a review from some lessons back. The height for a given base is the shortest distance between the base to the opposite face. Remember where we drop that rock down. So in your math journal on page 321, it says that a rectangular prism is a geometric solid. Okay, it is completely solid, enclosed by 6 flat surfaces formed by rectangles. And you can see that we have 1 side, 2 sides, 3, 4, 5, and then on the underside of 6. If each 6 rectangles is also a square, then the prism is a cube. Remember, a square is the same side, the same length on all sides. The flat surfaces are called the faces of the prism. So this would be a face. This is a face. This is a face. Write your own definition of base and height. Well, any of the 6 faces can be a base, but the face it sits on is chosen as the base. And remember that the height is the shortest distance between the base and the opposite face. You'll be working in your math journal today, taking a look at the back in your activity sheets. Activity sheet number 6, you'll be constructing a couple of different rectangular prisms that you'll be learning to understand and be able to manipulate today. This will be the act of how to create those different boxes. You may want to pause this. You don't need to write it down, but for when you make your activity sheets. You're going to use your cubes and you're going to work with a partner, and you're going to create a rectangular prism with a volume of 24 centimeters. Be able to answer the following questions. What is the base? What is the area of the base? And what is the height of that prism? The big idea for finding the volume of a prism is to do the base times height. So the area of the base, let's say it is a 4 by 4 and the height is 5, then we would say that it is 80. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 5 is 80. Now remember the base, if I were to draw a figure here, okay. This is not just the base right here. The base is the whole bottom. Ooh, sorry about that. It is the whole bottom that it sits on. So to get the base, you're going to have to do the length times the width and get this bottom section, and then you have to multiply it by a height because we're trying to figure out how many layers. If we first figure out the bottom layer, that it's 16 and it goes up for 5 layers, 16 times 5 is 80. So if the base is a 4 by 3, which is 12, but it goes up 6, 12 times 6 is 72 centimeters cubed. You should notice that we are measuring in cubic when we do volume. If my base was an 8 by 6, 8 times 6 is 48, and it went up 4, 48 times 4 is 192 inches cubed. And if it was a 6 by 3, which is 18, and we know that the volume is equal to 90, so 18 times what is 90? And that is 5. You're going to be working on your math journal, page 322, to try to solve figuring out the volume of your rectangular prism. Once again, you're not just going to do your base of 4 times 6. We have to do the area of the bottom first. So 4 times 3, which is 12, and we have a layer, 6 layers, so 12 times 6 is 72. If we take a look at our unit is centimeters. And remember, whenever we are measuring volume, it is always cubed. A right rectangular prism is made up of all rectangles. You can see rectangle, rectangle, rectangle. An oblique triangle, an oblique rectangular prism are not all rectangles. We have parallelograms here, but we still can figure out the volume in the same exact way. Because remember, to find a parallelogram is the same as finding a rectangle, so it's just base times height. So if I find the base times height and I figure out this area and I multiply by how tall it is, I could find the volume of this figure. That is all that your lesson is on today. The big idea for finding volume. Of a rectangular prism. Find the area of the base, which remember is base times the height of that flat surface, and multiply it by the height of the figure. So there should be 3 numbers that you multiply together. If we go back To this we had to do 4 times 3, okay, the base times the height of just this flat surface, and then we had to multiply by the height of how tall the figure is, which was 6. That is all that today's lesson is on. If you follow these rules, you will be successful in today's lesson. Best wishes!